episode 29 of the Fit Pro podcast.
I started doing some pull-ups of a door frame, some push-ups, and slowly I saw that I'm getting really good results here just by doing some basic stuff. So I just started structuring all this until I realized, like home workouts can be something I can motivate people to do, because I realized that you don't need a lot to get into shape.
Hello listeners and welcome back to the Fit Pro podcast. Before we get into today's episode, as always, I'd like to say a few words. Make sure you have visited fitpropodcast.com and just send all your friends there. Send your family there. Send everybody you know there, because you know somebody that needs some motivation and inspiration, and you know that this is the podcast that can get this done. If you haven't already, make sure you head to the Facebook page, FitProPod, and like some posts. Leave some comments, let the people know that you love the FitPro podcast, and let me know via reviews. Make sure you've gone to iTunes.com and search for FitPro podcast and subscribe to the podcast. It is free, and for those on Android, you're not left behind, because there is plenty of free ways to listen to the podcast. One of the apps I use is Pocket Casts on Android. You have to pay for it, but there are others like Podcast Addict, and I know there's one more as well, that you can listen to any podcast that you like. Now, I want to do something a little bit different today, and before we get into today's episode, I'd like to let you know of another podcast that I listen to personally. Now, one that I listen to every single day without fail is The Fighter and the Kid with Brendan Schwab and Brian Callen. It's just super entertaining, and if you know those two, you know that their podcast is about almost 2 hours every single time, but entertaining as fuck all the way through. All the way through, it's entertaining. So if you haven't already, make sure you go and subscribe to the Fighter and the Kid and the Fit Pro podcast, and that is all. Enjoy today's episode. It's episode 29. It's quite inspirational and motivational. Welcome back to the Fit Pro podcast, listeners. I am your host, Marvin Fayers, and today we have a very special guest. I know I say this always, but he's a very special guest. His name is Anthony Arvantakis. He is the creator of HomeMade Muscle. He's a home workout and bodyweight coach, and he's also the author of 3 books. Two of them I think being bestsellers. I know he'll correct me later, but one of them is called All You Need Is a Pull-Up Bar, and he's come on the show today to share his story. So Anthony, are you ready to go?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you for having me on your show, Marvin.
Perfect. Look, Anthony, before we get into the meat of today's episode, take a second, let everybody know who you are personally, and then we'll get into the business side of things.
Okay, sure. So, my name is Anthony. I grew up in Greece, living currently in the Netherlands. Grew up in this really small but extremely beautiful town called Castoria. I did a lot of, I had a really athletic background growing up. I did a lot of rowing, and after that I moved to a bigger town, Thessaloniki, to study sports science and physical education, which is also when I had an accident that changed my life a lot. So I was a pizza delivery boy, and one night I just had a big crash with a car. I flew about 25 meters, ended up on the ground with a really extreme open fracture. And long story short, after 5 years and 13 operations trying to reconstruct what was left of my leg, I ended up having to amputate it. So after that, it was pretty much a pretty dark period for 5 years, but at some point I just woke up. I got tired of being at that state, tired of feeling sorry of myself, I would say, feeling depressed, and one day everything just switched, and I saw this as an opportunity that I can use this prosthetic leg that I have to motivate people. Fitness was always my passion, so I thought I have to do something with fitness and exercise, and that's when the idea of HomeMade Muscle came. I was basically locked up in my house because I have a home, a really big cast up to my thigh, so I couldn't move a lot. I couldn't even bend my knee. Those of you who've had like a similar injury know that it's really difficult to move around. So I just started training at home. I started doing some pull-ups of a door frame, some push-ups, and slowly I saw that I'm getting really good results here just by doing some basic stuff. So I just started structuring all this until I realized, like home workouts can be something I can motivate people to do, because like I realized that you don't need a lot to get into shape. So that was when HomeMade Muscle was born. My tagline is called Strong and Lean Without Going to the Gym, which is all what my project is about. Minimalistic training, mostly body weight, some added stuff for legs, so some sandbags and stuff like that. And but I also try to talk a lot about other stuff in life, all the things that help me maintain a positive approach in life. I talk a lot about my spiritual side, which is all about mindfulness meditation, and things like that. So you said I have 2 books, I have 3 books that have been in best-selling categories on Amazon, 1 more that's more about diet tips on Amazon again, and 1 more on my website, the Superhero Home Workout Guide. The last year I've been doing this full time, so I'm really excited about that. I can put more quality content, spend more time writing. And it's pretty challenging, but it's something I love doing. I couldn't imagine myself doing any kind of job nowadays.
What an introduction, man, because look, your story is very, very inspirational, and it is the definition of obviously overcoming a pretty bad situation and turning it into a good situation. Now, I mean, I haven't even had a fracture before, let alone something of what you had. I haven't even had a cast before, so I wouldn't know what that feels like. And I think a lot of people out there don't realize how much of a burden it can be when you lose something that you've had your entire life. Yeah. Now, that being said, the turnaround, the 360 you made, so from those dark days to now, is nothing short of amazing. But again, you've basically created an entire business out of bodyweight coaching, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. And you become an author, and you've started sort of this project 3 years ago, which you're still doing now, and you're now doing it full time. I think that's the dream of a lot of people, doing their passion full time. And I think the scariest part of doing something full time is letting go of what you're currently doing, because I know personally myself, I'm still working a day job, and then I come and I do this on my off time or all my other time, basically. Mm-hmm. What was the transition period like for you, and what were you doing prior to doing this full time?
Yeah, well, at first I was just looking for jobs. I was struggling a lot to find something to do, because I'm like, I can't really move a lot. I have this leg that's still quite problematic, until a point where I had the amputation. I had to still I lived with about 5.5 years with casts and external fixators. I don't know if people know what that is. It's basically the screws and metallic frames you have around your leg, which is really dysfunctional for your daily life.
Yeah.
So I tried to do all kinds of things. I tried studying new stuff, but that failed because I had to have operations. So I started studying physiotherapy again. I quit on that. I started doing a master's again on sports science. I had to quit that again because I was always having problems with my leg getting in the way of all of this. So at some point, I got my leg amputated because I said, I'm just gonna have my leg amputated, get a prosthetic leg, and keep on doing stuff I love. Because I had a leg that wasn't healing, so I could walk on crutches, on canes, but I couldn't actually be mobile in my life and be physically active the way I wanted to. So that's the point when I took the big decision. But after that, it's like you see all these people in Special Olympics and stuff like that doing amazing things, but that's not really how it goes. In the beginning, just walking on a prosthetic leg is quite a struggle if this is something new to you. So at some point I was working in this basement restaurant in Amsterdam where I was standing for 6 hours a day, and that was something extremely painful for me because like especially standing at one spot is pretty challenging for me. It can get pretty painful, like I get soft tissue damage, like wounds and stuff like that, which like I would be back on the train home and I would be like curled in my spot in my seat and like be in serious pain, like trying not to tear up from the pain. So at that point I was like, what the hell am I doing? I was doing homemade muscle aside at the same time, but that wasn't working out that well because like the whole job thing was just too draining. But I just try to keep on doing that. I switched to another job. Then I started working in an office, which was more easy for me, sitting on the seat and that. But still, it was such a demanding job, like working overtimes, really bad money, and just being drained. Having so little energy to spend on my project. I would say the most difficult thing during those times wasn't the fact that I had to get up like 4:30 in the morning, 5 just to find some extra time to work on my project, while at the same time working. Like the most difficult part was believing that this is going to work out. Like sure that all the work you have to put in is challenging, but the hardest part of it is believing that this is going to happen. Because I remembered every night I went to bed and I was like, the whole day was just a big drama. I was tired. I had to travel with the train again, like for hours, which wasn't comfortable again for my leg, because you're pretty like in small spaces, you can stretch your leg, blah blah blah. So I remember I'd be so tired every day and so like basically feeling lost. But for some reason, when I went to bed every night, I just told myself this is gonna work out. I don't know how, but it's just gonna work out because I believe in it. And that's what kept me going until one day I decided I'm just gonna quit this job, my last office job, and I'm gonna go full time on my project. Doesn't matter, if I don't have any money at all, I'm just gonna go all in and let's see what happens. And that's when I finished my book. I'd written it in the past, but it wasn't that good the way I wrote it. So I rewrote my book, made a lot better version of it, made a lot better cover of it, and the book became a bestseller pretty much in, if I remember correct, within 2 weeks or 3 weeks after its release. And that's when I started seeing a little bit of light in the end of the tunnel.
Your story is amazing, and I'm very motivated listening to what you've been through. But ultimately, you've now created something where you're self-sufficient and you're working on your passion, and I think that's very, very important. And when it comes to you and the content you create, and you touched on it previously, you do create some content based on the mindset side of things, which I think is very, very important. And it's definitely a testament to you and what you've been able to do and your mental fortitude to get out of that dark days and then turn it into what it is now. How important is the mental side of things when it comes to being motivated towards your goals and accomplishing like these big dreams, these big things?
Well, I think there are two really important elements to have success with something you wanna do. Element number one is passion. There has to be passion for what you're doing. And element number two is emotional intelligence. Basically, being able to master your emotions, being able to stay calm when there's a big storm, being able to continue to believe in yourself that things are going to work out even when there's like no sign at all that that's gonna be the fact. I think that's extremely important nowadays, because nowadays information is open to everybody. Like anything you want to do, there is information out there on how to do it. So it's not like in the old times when people had to be either privileged or of a specific color of skin, or coming from a rich family, or whatever the case might be. to have access to information. That was the case for a lot of years. Nowadays, if you have an internet connection and a computer, that's basically all you need to have access on a global scale information on basically everything. So
absolutely.
If you want to learn how to do something, I don't care, like if you haven't studied it or whatever, if you're passionate and you're willing to study hard by yourself, if you're willing to work hard at your craft and keep on failing at it, failure, another extremely important thing, being able to fail without letting that take you down, where emotional intelligence comes again into play when it comes to that. So like all these things, extremely important. So basically passion and emotional intelligence. That's one reason I like mindfulness meditation a lot. That's one of the reasons I meditate a lot, because in the end, being aware gives you so much more control over your emotions. Being aware of how your body works and how you feel when you're angry and how you react when you're angry. So learning to control on that and learning to be more passionate, that's a key factor.
Yeah, like perfect. I think emotional intelligence is really underrated nowadays. I think everybody's too focused on IQ and being this book smart and like it's the only way to be successful. I think EQ is very very important and very very underrated. And when it comes to the point on you saying that there's so much information out there, you can literally do whatever you want to do if given the time and given the patience and being willing to learn a new skill. You can do it. It's like you can get university courses basically online for free if you really really wanted to. And that goes back to you, when we spoke before, you said, look, you've created your own website, you've done everything yourself. And that speaks to me because I've done everything myself. But obviously there's more, there's easier ways, and then there's our way of doing things. It's probably not the quickest way of doing it, but again, when that's all you've got, that's all you've got, and you just got to make it work. Now, you've been doing YouTube for 3 years now. You've been doing the HomeMade Muscle project for 3 years. At what point have you started? At what point did you see success?
Well, I still don't have like a huge following, so I have about 20,000 subscribers. But what I've seen the last year is that my growth is a lot more exponential, so it's growing a lot faster. And the reason for that, it's funny because like in the first 2-3 years, I was kind of getting annoyed that I didn't have more views and this and that. And nowadays I look back and I see that I didn't deserve more views because like the content wasn't as good as it should be. My presentation skills weren't as good as they should be. And that's the reason I started reading books on how to talk, on how to, present things, on how to be more relaxed. Like YouTube, it's funny because YouTube for me started as a personal challenge because spending 5 years basically depressed, I closed myself from a lot of friends, from people. I was always quite introverted, but this like put my introversion, this incident put my introversion on steroids basically. So like I became super introverted, and at some point I realized that I can't like make a normal conversation with people. I've gotten really damaged from this whole thing mentally. So I thought, like, what's the worst thing I can do to myself? Basically put me on the spotlight, put me on YouTube, or like the whole world has access to. So that was like a personal challenge, and of course I sucked at it in the beginning, but I've improved so much more, and I can see that on the growth rate of my channel nowadays. And that's for me is the success, the transition, the improvement, and how much more faster the channel is growing right now.
Oh, perfect. So look, you've been doing it for 3 years, and only now are you really starting to see some decent growth. And I think that's something to stress for, because everybody feels, I know personally from people I've spoken to, especially younger people, they feel like YouTube is very easy and anybody can do it. And look, it is easy to make a video. Anybody can make a video nowadays. If you've got a phone, you can make a video. But to make a good video, make a great content-filled video, and then it's patience again, because speaking from people that I watch on YouTube, and it's usually crap, really. On YouTube, you sort of get stuck down the trail. But I follow a guy called, what's his name, PewDiePie, basically, that does videos on video games. It's literally him playing video games, and he's the biggest thing on YouTube. I think he's got the most subscribers in the world. He's number one, right?
Okay.
He's number one. And his first year, he had, I think over a year, he had 700 subscribers. His entire year. Now he's got over, I think, 40-something million. Subscribers, right? He's the biggest guy on YouTube. Look him up, because he's the number one guy. There's Rihanna, and then there's this guy. Like,
okay. Wow.
And he's a Swedish guy. I think he's like 24, 25. And literally he plays indie games on YouTube, but he's genuinely funny. The content he puts out, he's a comedian first. That's his thing. He's a comedian first, and people recognize that he's a comedian. So if your content isn't good enough to capture anybody's attention, do you deserve the views? Do you deserve people to come and listen to you? Are you interesting enough? And I think that gets lost in translation. From your experience, how did you? So you said you learned a little bit more about presenting and speaking and getting out of your shell a little bit more. But what really helped from in your recent memory of what really helped with growth on YouTube? Because I think it's a big topic for people, because it's another marketing avenue as well we can go down.
Yeah. Well, one thing you have to do definitely is ads. So like paying some money on getting your videos out there, which is something I haven't done still yet, which that's actually promising. It feels promising for me, because I feel once I start doing that, people are also going to notice. And till now I wasn't doing that until I started getting these comments a lot the last couple of months. I'm getting like the same comment every, I don't know, like every 2 days or something. Like the comment goes something like this: like, I really like your project, and your content is great, and this and that, and but I just wonder, why don't you have more subscribers? Like there's so much more worse content out there with more following and this and that, and I just wonder, why don't you have a bigger following? So I started getting this really often the last couple of months, and that made me think, okay, since it seems that my content is, people like it, I mean, I can't say that my content is great, but since people like it, I'm gonna go with that and say that it's okay. So since I've made that realization, I realized that, okay, now the next step is to put some ads. So once you feel that you're at a point that you feel that you're producing good content, I would say that's the key moment to start going for some ads. But before that, the reason I think that my project started growing was because, first of all, I quit my job and I just went full in. I just, gave it all to the project, and it's everything I create is basically my daily life. Like, I never post anything that I don't do. Like, everything is what I live and breathe. Same wise with my books, every workout plan I've written on this and that, I've sweated that workout plan for months, for weeks and months, and maybe almost years now. So I won't put a workout plan out there if I haven't sweated. Like, that's an expression I use.
Yeah.
If I haven't sweated my program, I won't put it out there. That means that I've actually done this a lot of times, and I've put a lot of sweat in it. So I think it's basically, don't just make a video and say things that you think people like to hear. That's also important, but you should also live what you do. It has to be, because people nowadays can sense when you're bullshitting people. I think like the average knows when it's being bullshitted. So if what you're doing doesn't have a sense of authenticity, it seems that you're just pretending or whatever, people are going to spot that a lot faster than most people think. and it's gonna show. So you gotta be authentic, and you gotta be living what you're doing. And I think that's the reason that my YouTube channel started to grow. So it's a little bit of what we said before, the passion, keeping it real and this and that, but also learning to start to promote things more with, using better marketing and stuff like that.
And I think you hit the nail on the head there, because marketing is key when it comes to anything. And we were talking about this again prior to the podcast about how there's the dark side and there's the light side of marketing.
Yeah.
And it's so very true. There's that seedy marketing that just wants you to buy their shit, and then there's the marketing that's just, look at this valuable content. It will help you. It'll help you. And I think a lot of you, I've watched a few of your videos, and a lot of your content, again, is brilliant stuff. And versus, you should be bigger. You definitely should be bigger compared to some of the other crap that's on YouTube. And I can only see, obviously, big things happening, especially once you start doing advertising, once you start collaborating with a few more people. And I think that's key. This podcast is just a big collaboration. Like, everybody that I get on, all the guests, it's collaborating. It's like guerrilla marketing, because you're bringing value to my audience, I'm bringing value to your audience. There's a value exchange there. So it is marketing, but it's the light side of marketing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that you are, again, you should be very proud about is you're an author as well. Now, how did you get into writing books?
But that's funny, because if any of my school teachers, if I would tell them now that I'm an author, they would be laughing, because when I remember as a kid, I could never finish an essay, because and nowadays it makes sense, because I was never interested in the topics that we were made to write about. So for me, if I don't like something, I'm gonna suck at it. I won't try to be good at something just for no reason. I have to like something, or it has to be valuable to other people. That has to be a motive for me. So when you're a kid and people make you write how was your summer holiday? I don't care about writing that. Looking out of the window right now is more interesting for me. So I really sucked at writing as a kid. I think the main reason was that I didn't care about it. But I realized again that once you write about something you're passionate about, the whole way you approach writing changes. And of course, to be honest, the first 3 years, as I said, were a big failure of this project. You can see it as a big failure and also as a training course. So basically 3 years is 1,000 days. So the way I like to see it is that I failed 1,000 times before I started slowly having a little bit of success with things. And my book, I wrote it, the time I wrote it and put it on Amazon was the third or the fourth time. So the first couple of times I made the book, it was really bad. I hadn't written till then anything. I just put the things on a piece of paper on my laptop. I wrote things the way I experienced them, but I didn't really. First of all, it's easy to get used to your experience of things and see it as really boring, while other people can see it from a whole different scope. But again, I put work on it. I started reading books on how to write. Writing well, really good book. When I worked at that office job, it was actually a marketing related job, copywriting related job. So that was also for me an educational opportunity. So I was anytime I could, I was learning more on how to write better. And at some point, passion and skill just met. And that's when I wrote the book for the third time, and that's when it turned into something pretty good, or at least for other people good enough to get it out there in the top selling ranks on Amazon.
that is all we have time for today, listeners. Thank you for listening to episode 29 of the Fit Pro podcast. Hopefully you found that as motivational and inspirational as I did. Anthony is an amazing human being, and we'll pick this episode up on, we'll pick up part 2 on episode 31 of the Fit Pro podcast. But if you like what you heard here today and you want to hear more, make sure you head to fitpropodcast.com and you can see all other interviews that we have done in the past, as well as be able to contact all the guests. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you head to the Facebook page, FitPro Podcast, and leave some likes, leave some shares, leave some comments. We want to build a motivational, inspirational community on that page. If you want to get hold of me personally, the best way to do it is via Twitter at FitPro Podcast. And yeah, we're putting out content on there on a regular basis. If you want to know more, or if you know anybody that would be suitable for the show, just tag me in it, tweet me, and we will get onto it for you. That is all we have time for today, listeners. And hopefully you've reached your destination. Hopefully you've done your reps, or you're just about to start some work. You're about to start grinding. And the message I want to leave for everybody is, if you are grinding daily, if you are putting in the quality work, man, the job's going to get done. Okay, you're going to reach your goal. Keep it up. Keep up the hard work. Keep motivating. Keep inspiring. And I will catch you on the next episode of the Fit Pro Podcast.